All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Looks like we've got some people flowing in here. That's fabulous. We're going to get started here in just about 60 seconds. We're really excited to have you on for our very first after hours conversations to help directors thrive in the COVID era. So again, we're going to get started here in just about 45 seconds now. So come on in. If you have any questions you want to ask, feel free to go ahead and throw them over there on the chat bar so we can ensure that we spend a little bit of extra time on those particular questions tonight. So very good. Welcome, everybody. Welcome, welcome. Let's see who all we have. We have a good group in here. Hey, Mr. Andrew Lynn, fabulous, one of our panelists for next week. Looking forward to having some more familiar faces. Mr. Troball, Mr. Hembrook. Good to see you guys. Some Arkansas people. Looks like we have the Bruners. Hey, everybody. Man, what a great group. Looking forward to kicking off these conversations. Here's Jay McCulley, another Middle Tennessee guy up there from Mark's neck of the woods. Man, look at everybody coming in here. We got 6 renditions. Keith Sanders is in here 6 times. That's pretty impressive, Keith. I don't know how you did that. Okay, fabulous. Well, we're going to go ahead and get started. I know we are still working with one of our panelists. And Jamie, if you're on here, we're going to try to get you in as quickly as we can. But I think we're going to go ahead and get started. It's 5:03, and we're really excited to kick off today's conversation. So welcome, everyone, to After Hours Conversations to help directors thrive in the COVID-19 era. Each week, Tuesdays at 5 p.m., we're going to be looking at a different topic and pulling them apart with an expert panel that's going to help us talk about what they're doing in their classrooms, how they're solving some of today's problems. So again, today we're going to be talking about student activities and challenges of teaching on and offline. It looks like Jamie just joined us. I'm sure her audio is getting going, so welcome, Jamie. So my name is Nick Averwater. I'll be the moderator, and I'm here at Amarillo Music in Memphis. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to throw them over on the chat bar. Hey, Jamie, glad you made it. Welcome.
Okay, thanks.
If you have any questions, feel free to throw them over on the chat bar so we can spend a little bit of time doing that. But on that note, we're going to go ahead and get kicked off. I want to introduce all of our panelists. So panelists, if you don't mind, Mark, I'm going to let you kick us off because you're in the top left of my screen. Tell us who you are, where you're from, what you do, and we have so much negativity in the world. If you could give us 2 quick sentences on something that has either encouraged or warmed your heart since all of this has started, so we can just start on a positive note, that would be awesome. So Mark, over to you.
All right, first of all, thanks for hosting this, Amarillo Music and Nick, we appreciate it very much. My name is Mark Kinzer. I am the band director at Fairview High School. I have been teaching for 32 years now, and I've enjoyed every moment of it. It's been great. This is certainly you could say a challenging time, but I look at this as an opportunity time for us and a time of hope. And I'm seeing a lot of that in our community out here in Fairview and also with our kids. We do a service once a month for some elderly folks out here who do not have access to food and things like that. And our kids have continued that mission with GraceWorks, delivering food once a month to this elderly people. And then I've also had the ability to have some students that have sent me some really great compositions and things that they've been writing and working with. So I think our message of taking opportunity or taking crisis and turning it into opportunity, which creates hope, has really benefited us out here.
That's awesome. Thanks, Mark. All right, Marcy, we'll turn it over to you. How are things in Arkansas?
Hi, my name is Marcy Wells. I teach in Greenbrier, Arkansas, which is about an hour north of Little Rock. I help with high school bands, teach AP music theory, direct the 9th grade band, and teach a couple classes of homogeneous beginners. So that's what we do. I think probably one of my favorite experiences has been seeing a couple of kids log into Google Classroom who don't give me a lot in the classroom normally at school, you know, and then all of a sudden here they are when I didn't expect it. And you can see from the look on their face that they're just so glad to have some interaction with another adult and be a part of something and be included. And it's the best part of their day sometimes. So that's been my favorite part of it.
That's awesome. Thank you, Marcy. Lindsey, how are things in Kentucky?
Things are good in Kentucky. My name is Lindsey Williams. I'm excited to be here with you guys tonight. I teach at Paducah Middle School, which is in the Paducah City School District in Paducah, Kentucky, here in Western Kentucky, McCracken County. And I have a split sixth grade. We have them divided by family. So I have a sixth grade woodwind percussion class, sixth grade brass, same with seventh grade band, and then an eighth grade concert band. And I do a string orchestra class as well. So we do jazz band outside of the school day, which I know the kids are really missing. But I've been teaching for 15 years in Paducah Middle School. And the thing that's really warmed my heart is the parents connecting with the students. I've noticed some of the students are really independent and video themselves playing songs. But what's fun is the parents who are videoing their child practicing, maybe when the student doesn't know that they're doing that, and it's sweet to see that, and to see some of the students sending me songs that I normally wouldn't get to hear them play. So I think they're having a lot of fun connecting by playing their instrument as something positive, a positive activity to do during the day, and it's really been fun to see that.
That's awesome. Thank you, Lindsey. And Jamie, our Mississippi representative, how are you?
I'm great. Thank you so much. My name is Jamie Young, and I teach at Lake Cormorant High School in DeSoto County. And I teach high school band, a general music class, and a dual enrollment music appreciation. And I have 2 teenagers here right now with me who are also band students, so they may be playing for you later. We'll see. Well, a couple of things that have really pulled at my heartstrings. The first thing is I've had a number of kids that have reached out to other students to kind of help them get plugged in to what we're doing online and make sure they're on top of everything and they have their assignments. So they're really sharing, the knowledge that they have. And then the other thing was an assignment that I gave right as the first week after we got out, where the students were asked to teach their parents a song on their instrument. So they had to teach their parents how to play like Mary Had a Little Lamb. And what was really great about that was it was hilarious, but it also gave the parents an opportunity to understand and see what their child goes through to learn to play an instrument, and that, there is a difficulty involved, and they really appreciate it a lot more. And then it also gave the parent and the child a chance to connect through music. So that was a lot of fun watching those videos. And then one other thing that's happened that was really neat was a couple of the schools put parades together of teachers who went around in cars parading through neighborhoods, waving at their students and kind of getting them pumped up and excited about, seeing them again. So that was really sweet too.
That's awesome. Thank you, Jamie. And I love that activity, teaching your parent how to play. How much fun is that? And so that's a really cool, engaging activity. I suspect we're going to circle back around to that one. So thank you all. It's no accident. We've got people representing both middle school and high school band and orchestra, 4 different states. We wanted as diverse of a panel as we could, because we know everybody's state is different. Everybody's district is different, how they're handling this. So I think this is great because we're going to have such a unique, widespread perspective on facing these challenges today. So let's talk and turn our attention to keeping students engaged. And Marcy, I'm going to lead off with you. What are some of the activities that you're doing to keep your students engaged, and what's working and maybe what's not working with your students?
We are a big Google Classroom school. So we've been doing a lot of stuff through there, and we've been encouraged from our district to use Google Hangouts because it's easy to save, and they want us to record all of our videos and post them. So a lot of that. I've been doing a couple different kinds of meetings with my kids. I really like what I call just a check-in meeting. We don't really have an agenda. They don't need their instruments. I may do a couple of announcements, but mostly we just kind of visit and catch up. And I usually plan for those to be about 10 or 15 minutes and have to kick the kids off at the end of it because they all want to talk. They miss each other. They miss just being a part of that. So those are fun. All of our staff have split up the instruments based on the beginning ones we teach. And so I do the clarinet and the French horns. So I've set up separate Google Classrooms to work 6 through 8 clarinets together, 6 through 8 horns, also 9 through 12 clarinets and 9 through 12 horns. So we've been kind of doing our instruction that way, and we can focus on tone and some basics and scales and instrument specific kind of stuff that we can't always get to. I created a Sign Up Genius form and have been doing some have offered one-on-one private lessons to some of my students. I can squeeze in like 2 or 3 a day, and they just sign up if they're interested in that. We're working on creating a virtual solo and ensemble where they can choose a solo, especially for our younger kids, and send us a recording, and we will email them a certificate and feedback. We've also been searching the internet for everything we can find that's pop and fun, and posting all that in the Google Classroom just to give them more stuff to play. We have used smart music from a director perspective in our classrooms, but not really pushed that out to students. And so I've done several videos helping them get signed up for the free smart music subscriptions.
That's awesome, Marcy. Thank you so much. And we have a question here from Keith. So you're using Google Classrooms both individually for some one-on-one conversations, but also group conversations. Has Google Classrooms been able to accommodate your entire class and your entire group so far?
Well, they don't all show up, but I think the limits on Google Classroom are 250.
Okay.
So that's a pretty solid number.
Yeah, absolutely. Fabulous. Great question, Keith. Thank you. Okay, Lindsey, how about you? You've got a lot of young people that you're working with in Paducah. What are you using to keep them engaged?
I think the thing that I wanted to impress upon everybody from the very beginning of all this was that the most important thing besides, self-care and well-being is that everybody needs to keep playing. And so even, trying not to put a lot of pressure on them about what to play, even though I have given assignments as these weeks have gone on, and keep it structured. But the very first priority for me, for my middle schoolers, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, is to keep the horn out every day, at least 5 days a week, and make sure that you're playing every day. And so doing a good warm-up, just keeping those basic routines that we had instilled in them so well all school year in place, and just sending out a gentle reminder, maybe every day or every other day. We're not on Google Classroom, we're on Microsoft Teams in our school district. And so just sending a message out that way, and also through parent emails, and some texting to the people who aren't on Teams saying, don't forget to warm up. To my string orchestra students, we've done a lot of different, I've done some video lessons, not where we've been together, but things that I can send out that say, don't forget to tune before you play every time, because if you're not tuning, your practice time is going to be a waste of your time. And even though we seem to have a lot of time right now in our hands, we don't want your time to be wasted. So I think that number one thing is reach out to us if you need us, but then don't forget to play. Don't leave your horn in the case every day. Make sure you're playing. And I have worked some things out where, if there's an instrument that's broken and it's a dire situation, then we've worked out a way to pick that up and try to get that into the shop somehow. Haven't had too many of those yet, but I didn't anticipate that we would have some problems with instrument repair, but Reese has made that really seamless. Yeah. So just trying to remind them to play and keep them engaged in that way, encouraging them to play things that they enjoy, and also challenging some of the students that are self-starters, and just saying, here's a list of songs that, these are playing tests that we were going to do this quarter. Here's the, the whole list of Chekhov songs. And one student sent me all 13 songs in one day. She was really,
wow.
She's a flute player, of course, but very conscientious. But just encouraging students on all levels to stay and keep playing every day.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you, Lindsey. So Mark, let's turn our attention to you. You and Jamie both teach at the high school level. And so let's talk a little bit about keeping those high school students engaged and what activities you're doing to accomplish that.
Well, here in Williamson County, what we did was we put together learning resources at all 3 levels. I had some people to help me do the high school band portion. And what we tried to do was hit different areas to keep the kids engaged. We did a music theory area, we did a performance area, we did a listening and analysis area, history, composition, and then leadership and co-curricular. And what we're doing is pushing out suggestions of things that students can do to stay actively engaged in the music making process. We all know that that process of making music cannot be replicated, but we're trying to push as much information out there to them as possible to keep them engaged and keep them playing. One thing I've done with my students personally is I've taken 10 families each day just to call and check in on them, not about band, but just about their personal well-being and making sure that they have got the things they need. We're pushing things out through Google Classroom, and we're using Screencastify to make videos and things like that that we can push out through the district resources as well as our own schools.
Yeah. Awesome. Fabulous, Mark. So I love how y'all have broken this up into different learning segments, approaching things like leadership and ensuring that it's a well-rounded curriculum, and that we're taking advantage of this time to not just talk about music, but other things that are important to our success. So that's fabulous. And Jamie, how about for you at Lake Cormorant? Again, working with a lot of high school students, how are you keeping them engaged?
So we do a number of things very similar to what Mark is doing by making sure we're targeting certain areas of practice and preparation. One of the things that I really try to do with my students is try to get as many involved in whatever social media or media platform resource that we are using. And I know that, some students like using this, some students like using this. So I've just really diversified the platforms that we're using. So the hub of everything that we teach is from our teacher webpage. So we put our lesson plans on there. All of the connecting things that we are doing can be found there. So that's the first place we tell them to start. I also communicate with them through Remind 101 and School Status, and School Status is actually part of our district too. We also use the Microsoft Teams, and they can find those links on our webpage. Click on that link and then join the class that they're a part of. And through this program, I'm able to communicate with the students through messages and set up online meetings to discuss progress, or who might need assistance in accessing, all of the different apps we're using or the different lessons that we're asking them to do. This also allows my students to connect with each other, which is really good, and they can find some kind of normalcy in respect to everything that's going on right now. One of the ways that I've tried to motivate them and get them involved is by giving hints and clues to our next year's marching show. So I'll give them riddles once a week, and they have to figure that out. And then actually this week is the reveal week. So for the 4 weeks, I've had a number of students that just want to be on there so they can find out what the show is going to be. So just trying to find motivational tactics to use to get them on there. And I think once I get them on there, I can get them going with all the assignments. I also have files of the assignments downloaded on there. I use a form once a week for the kids, and this was implemented before all of this happened. It's called Deep Practice, and it kind of gives them a written instructional guide on how to practice, which includes listening and sight reading and tonal aspects, warm-ups, working on solos. They fill that out once a week through Google Docs and then send that in to me. And of course, through that, they can use Sight Reading Factory, or I'll give them different areas they can get sight reading materials from. We also use Smart Music, and I'm using that specifically with my wind ensemble because that was implemented before, but I know Smart Music is offering it free to all students right now. So that's a really good platform to use. It's not quite as user-friendly as some, but if it was set up, if you have a way to easily set that up with them, I think it would really serve as an advantage to get them involved with a lot of different kinds of music. I've started a program with them. It's called Breezing Through Theory, and this has been a great program. I just absolutely love it. It's also free right now to the students, and it assesses the students' knowledge on music theory and also their prior musical knowledge. It's been a great way to address music theory practices that I haven't been able to address in class, and I plan on continuing to use that when we get back to school next year. It's a very interactive approach that I can customize for my individual classes. And I'm also using that for my general music classes as well. It also has a reward system set up to help motivate the students so they can take ownership into their individual success. And then I can look at the data and statistics on which students are involved and what they're doing. And again, it's totally free, and it's a way to collect data on the students and know what they're doing. Currently, I have about 100 students in high school band. I have 58 students enrolled in this, and they've already completed those 58 about 1,300 assignments. So, so that's, that's not everybody, but that's over 50% of the students that are involved in that.
That's awesome.
I use Flipgrid also, and that's an interactive app that allows me to get video assignments that I may assign to them. Like right now, they have a scale set 1, a scale set 2, a scale set 3, and then some of the music that we were working on before all of this happened. So they make videos of themselves performing. This has been a great tool for us because when they pass off the scales, they do it blindfolded or with their eyes closed, so I can use it as an actual audition for next year's chair placements, or even to be in the high school band. Wow. And you can also, with Flipgrid, and it's free also, you can make some fun activities on there. Like we did one where they had to make a video and talk about what their favorite apps were. And then we did the video where they were teaching their parent, the song, which was really fun. My percussion instructor and one of our assistant directors, Christopher Jordan, it's called OneNote. And he creates 1 or 2 assignments per week for students. And that involves music theory or history and performance and self-assessment. And if you're on any of the online teacher, band director Facebook pages, and Mr. Jordan is using this, it's called Band Bingo, which is an assignment that he can give to the students each day. And then using YouTube also as a way to access documents and videos. The current thing that we're trying right now, and I'm really liking it a lot, is Discord. And as I was saying earlier, I have a 17-year-old son who was talking to me about it, and he was like, hey Mom, there are a lot of kids that are on this program. This would be a good way to reach out to the band students. So we set up a page, and from that page we're able to set up like different sections and do text channels and voice channels. The only thing about that is you have to be very careful what the students are discussing and talking on there, and make sure they have guidelines for appropriate use. But we've been able to reach out to a lot of students that way. I didn't realize how many kids are actually using Discord, so that's been a really cool thing. And the kids like using that platform. So again, I'm just trying to find as many ways, different ways possible that I can reach as many students as possible. So that's kind of what we're doing.
Awesome. Thank you, Jamie. Yeah, you're definitely casting this wide net and trying to engage as many students. And we got a comment, Ben Hembrook also says he's using Breezing Through Theory. I'd never heard of this with his middle school, and his students have completed nearly 500 drills and assignments as well. So he's endorsing it for middle school. So that's great information as well. So thank you, Jamie. Thank you, everyone. Man, I think we just ripped through about a dozen different apps and different content ideas and ways to keep student engaged. So that's awesome. Now, on the other side of that coin, and I know this is a conversation that we really need to spend some time on, but we have to recognize that not everyone has access to high-speed internet or to the technology that they need to accomplish these assignments. Let's spend a little bit of time pulling that apart. So Mark, I'm going to kick off with you because I know you mentioned you're from a pretty rural area. And so what are you doing to engage your students that don't have access to technology and high-speed internet?
So Nick, one of the first things we discovered at Fairview High School was that when parents started losing their jobs and being laid off, the internet was the first thing to go. And that was cut.
Oop. You there, Mark? Am I the only one that lost Mark? Nope. There you are.
Are you getting me?
Yeah. Okay. You start with the first thing you realized when you came to Fairview High School was.
And then you lost me. Okay, let me start all over. So when I came to Fairview High School, the first thing we discovered was that the internet was the first thing that parents were cutting when they lost jobs or were laid off or things like that. So what we've been doing is sending out the Chromebooks, the Kajeets, along with those and providing those hotspots for students so they could do that. The other thing we did was we put together paper packets and things that we could get to the students that they could use in place of a computer.
Okay. Tell me a little bit more about the Chromebooks and the hotspots. I mean, I'm familiar with them on the business side. Are those something that's provided by the district, or for those students that don't have that, how are you able to acquire them for them?
Well, the district had some, and then our school had some. And basically what they do is they plug in the wall and just provide that student with a hotspot that will link with their Google Chromebook.
Okay, fabulous. Awesome. Thank you, Mark. Marcy, how about for you in Arkansas, the students that don't have internet, what are you doing?
We're doing a lot of the same things. You know, we have the paper packets, and I have practice records and lists of things. But one of the things that I started doing this week is writing all my students a personal letter. And they're real short, they're real simple, and they're not even really about band. They just say, hey, I wanted you to know that I'm thinking about you, and I miss our class where we could all get together, and I hope that you're doing okay. So that's one thing I've done, just to kind of reach out personally.
Yeah. I love that idea, because I have to imagine we have students right now who are missing their friends, their teachers, and they're pretty lonely. And so I love the way that you're connecting the human element with music and encouraging them to continue to participate. And I have to think it's going to impact your retention as well, those students. So that's really great. Lindsey, how about for you? What are you doing for students that don't have internet?
A pretty big percentage of our student population opted out of the online thing. I guess they don't have access to internet, or they would just prefer the paper packet. And at this point, for my ensemble classes, which is all that I teach all day, I haven't really sent out any worksheets or any paperwork to go with those paper packets that have been delivered. So I've just been doing everything I can to reach out to the kids as far as our teams, but I'm not getting more than maybe 20 or 25% response rate on Teams online. So the email does seem to reach a lot of parents. And the other thing I've discovered is even when I do connect with the students on Teams, my middle school student parents, they don't see what their child is doing on Teams necessarily. So reaching that parent audience has been really important, and I've realized that more and more as we've gone along. So I've tried to email parents lists of the assignments for this quarter as far as playing tests go, and then we've discovered just sending videos and has been taking a long time. So we've kind of opted to do some audio for the people that can't upload video. But even there's students that their parents don't have a smartphone, or they don't have their own smartphone. And so I've just been trying to call or to text and just reach out and say, hey, you know, what's the best way that I can connect with you? And anytime I've had a chance to send somebody music that maybe left their band folder or their orchestra folder at school. And so I've been getting parents saying, oh, we don't have this song, or we don't have this packet to work on, or this band book, method book. Anytime I mail something, I've kind of been doing what Marcy is doing, just including a little personal note. It says, hey, whatever you need, let me know. And we're here for you, whether we have to make a phone call or a text, or, you know, a home visit, and keeping that 6-foot distance when we go by. And I've dropped off some rosin to my string students, and knock on the door and then step way back. So they say keep a full trombone slide length away from people is 6 feet. So as a trombone player, I can visualize, okay, this is how far back I need to be from the door, then they feel a lot more comfortable to come outside. Everybody is desperate for human interaction right now. Anytime I've delivered rosin or slide oil or made a home visit, that it's not been a short visit, because everybody wants to talk.
Yeah.
Hey, Lindsey, have you had any workings with the publishing companies, because they've been really good about letting us use materials that we've bought and doing PDFs and things for the students?
I've heard that they'll do a lot more free stuff, but I haven't reached out or done anything with that personally, but I need to keep that in mind.
Yeah, that's great, Mark. Has anybody else, any of our other panelists, worked with publishers or had success in having them loosen their guidelines to distribute music? Yeah. That's good feedback. Thanks, Mark. I appreciate that. And Lindsey, I love one of the things that you pointed out that we probably shouldn't overlook is that for these students that might be left behind because they don't have opportunities to communicate through more streamlined messaging platforms, is that when you reach out to them, it sounds like you're uncovering other problems that might be preventing them from participating in music, and it's giving you that opportunity, like delivering rosin or the packets or just having these conversations. So you're uncovering other things too that are creating obstacles from your child or from the child participating in music. So I would love that suggestion. Yeah. Jamie, how about for you? How are you handling students without high-speed internet?
We are also making the teacher packets, and they include 2 weeks of lesson plans or 2 weeks of assignments. The kids can pick those up at school, and then they deliver them back to the school. And I think that's reaching a lot of the students that we're not being able to reach online. However, if I find that we're not reaching them that way, then I go through whatever means possible to reach that student. Call them using our school status. We have access to the parents' numbers, emergency numbers, and just call them to try to find out what we can do to accommodate their kids so they can be part of what's going on. A lot of the students at the high school level, I think, do have smartphones, and so I try to adapt the lessons so they will, so they can be used on their smartphones. The only one that really can is Smart Music, but all of the other ones are easily accessible from their smartphones. I'm sure it's a lot different at the middle school level, but at the high school, most of them do have phones. So. Again, I think it's important to just reach out to the individual students if you haven't been able to, get in contact with them, to call their parents, to call them, to just find out what you can do to get that information to them. And like Lindsey was saying, I've made a couple of house calls too. We had to go and restring a horn. So, you do what you got to do to get these kids playing and their instruments working, and I think all of that is really important, and it shows them that you really care about them too, and it's a lot more than just teaching a lesson. It's trying to accommodate a lot of their needs. So that's what we do.
Yeah, that's fabulous. Thank you, Jamie. So Marcy, let's come back to you. So we've talked about the high-speed internet, and certainly that's a huge obstacle. What are some other obstacles that you might be facing through either teaching online or in the COVID era, and how are you overcoming some of those obstacles?
For me, I think that's really a loaded question. I think that we're going to feel the repercussions of this in so many ways for years to come. So I think that, we don't really know how effective what we're doing is. I know Lindsey said earlier that she gets in her best classes 20% participation, and mine's probably about there or lower, depending on the class. I have run across just a lot of odd things in teaching online that I wasn't used to. You don't realize how dependent on feedback we are until you play through a scale 3 times with your kids, and at the end you have no idea if they can play it or not because they're all muted and you can't hear them. And so that's been real different for me to just stay with the process and not have that feedback. I'm also having to alter my wait time with kids when I'm teaching, because they won't jump in online and talk like they will in the classroom. And sometimes I think it may even be an internet delay. So as a teacher, when it's silent, I just want to talk and want to fill that void and keep that going. And I've had to be really aware and just be quiet and wait. Sometimes if you wait 30 seconds, they'll eventually start answering you. And that's not something I have to do in my classroom usually.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you, Marcy. Lindsey, how about for you? Are there other challenges that you're finding different from teaching in the classroom to now, and how are you addressing these?
I can't remember what I was watching a show the other day, and somebody said that we have to forgive ourselves. And I think that all this self-inflicted pressure, trying to teach the same way, we have to try to do everything a lot differently to reach as many kids as we can and to be as effective as we can from this distance learning. But I've also had to forgive myself and take some of that pressure off and realize that I'm doing the best that I can. All the teachers are doing the best that they can. The students and the parents are doing the best that they can. And so we have to be patient And I mean, some parents are working, some parents are home teaching. I saw a parent yesterday. She came out and said, "Oh, I've been teaching my second grader about the solar system." And I just think everybody's trying to find the best way to make this work. And so just trying to take some of that pressure off and say, okay, even though I didn't get everything done on my to-do list today, I try to look back at it and go, okay, who did I reach today that maybe I hadn't heard from yet? Or who achieved a playing test better because of some little feedback that I gave them in a text or a note the other day. So it's trying to find the positive and stay positive. It feels like we've all been on an emotional roller coaster since this started, or at least I know that I have. And so I think we're all getting really creative and trying to overcome these obstacles and just do what we can with the time that we have.
Yeah, and that's such a great thing for us to keep in perspective, that we have to give ourselves the opportunity to recognize that this is different on us too. And that's okay. We can overcome this, and it's going to take time. So I love that you recognize that, Lindsey, that it's okay to give ourselves the opportunity to learn and to be vulnerable and to do all of those things. That's great. Thank you. Jamie, how about for you? What surprised you, or what obstacles have you encountered?
One of the things that my kids have had a problem with is just making sure that they have all of the correct information and not getting confused about what they're supposed to be doing. This has kind of happened more with my dual enrollment classes, because their workload is a lot more than what I'm giving like my general music class. But you know, having that foundational web page to go to and say, okay, go here first, and you know, and look under your class, and that's exactly what you have to do and when it's due, so they're not confused about that anymore. I think, you know, when they start having that confusion, it's like, what am I supposed to do, when is this due? Because you know, when they're getting all of this information from so many different teachers, it does get confusing and a little overwhelming, not just for the students but also for the parents. So being able to keep them on task, motivated, and focused on what the assignment is at hand, instead of thinking about all of the multitudes of different things they're having to do, I think helps a lot. And then I also kind of rate mine based on a percentage. You know, I don't want to give them as much work as I normally do during the school year. So I cut it at least in half, maybe even a little bit more, and give them a lot more time to get assignments done. But even so, they still, you know, they still struggle with being off task and not motivated. And I find myself being that way as well. So again, I think, you know, it's crucial that you have that communication with the students or the parents, so you can help overcome those types of obstacles.
Yeah, thanks, Jamie. And how about for you, Mark? Anything that you might add to this conversation?
Well, I think the biggest thing we find out, and we talked about this as a faculty yesterday, is so many families are depending on their kids to take care of the younger siblings. Kids have been farmed out to other places and may not have the resources with them they need to complete assignments and things that we give them. The other thing is trying to get that student who is only motivated by grades to be motivated to do something. Here in Tennessee, we can't require anything be done as an assignment here. So we're looking at alternative ways of trying to create motivation with those kids and keep them engaged.
Yeah, that's a great point, Mark. Thank you. And just out of curiosity, have you found a way that has been effective for those students that are only motivated by grades? I mean, I think we could make that a topic in and of itself, to talk about student motivation. What have you found to be successful?
Well, I keep hearing that 20% number, and I think that's something I've heard just across the nation and talking to people, that they're running into about 20% of their students that are actually responding. I have found that most of my students are responding to text messages and phone calls and things like that better than anything.
Yeah. Okay. That's perfect. Well, and that's a great lead into our next conversation, which is communication. I also want to share, Robin, one of our attendees here, shared some great insight. She says the availability of internet is spotty in her area, but YouTube seems to get much better reception and download speeds than Google Classroom. So she's using a lot of YouTube in areas where there's poor cell phone reception. So that's interesting. Robin, thanks for the information and feedback there for those people that might be encountering slow download speeds on Google Classroom. Might give YouTube a try. So thanks for sharing that with everyone. So let's flip over and talk about communication, because again, we've got 20% of the students, it sounds like they're engaged, they're checking their Google Classroom or their email, whatever it is. What has been the most effective way for you to communicate with your students thus far? So Mark, why don't you lead us off?
Well, I think the first way has been through the Google Classroom. And then secondly, I have a texting agreement with all of my high school band students. So I'm able to reach out to them through text. I'm also calling families. I'm trying to make it an effort to call 10 families each day and just check in on them. I think one thing we have to remember is that for some students, school is their safe environment and home may not necessarily be the safe environment. And for lack of a better term, they've been quarantined into this unsafe environment. So I think it's important that we communicate with them and let them know that we're still thinking about them during this time.
Yeah, that's great. So Mark, you're really utilizing the text message. And I mean, with high school students, I assume that's a pretty common way that they communicate. So you might as well do the same.
Yeah, they tend to not check email. You know, email is foreign to them. They're more into the Snapchat, Instagram, and TikToks and things like that.
Huh. Okay. That's interesting. Sometimes I feel like adults do the same, but that might be a different topic. So we'll keep moving on that one. So Lindsey, how about you? You're dealing with a lot of young kids, and so they may or may not have a smartphone, may or may not have a cell phone. How are you interacting with these students and communicating with them effectively?
There's a couple of different ways we have set up through the school. And so the Microsoft Teams Classroom is obviously the first platform that we use, but with such a low percentage. I do have a mass parent email list because I don't email middle schoolers, but I have found that I can connect with some of their parents through email. But again, a lot of adults are not using that, or they don't check it very often. So we have something called Kinbo, which I'm sure there's many different forms of that, like Remind, where it's set up through my classroom, my class rosters, where I can send a very short message, which is difficult to do, but it's like a text, or it goes to the parent's preferred method, whether that's their smartphone or their email. That little short message will get to them. So something I've been doing to kind of piggyback on email is if I send out a really important email with a lot of information, then I'll send a Kinbo message and say, hey, did you get my email? And let me know if you didn't, because it's really important. We actually did a fundraiser earlier this month, or in March, and it's coming in Thursday. So we're having to kind of navigate some uncharted territory with that. So I did let the people that sold popcorn know, we're going to space that out. We're going to social distance, and here's how you can pick up your popcorn. And so that's been an interesting challenge this week as far as planning that kind of event and coordinating the popcorn pickup this Friday and Monday. But I try to touch all those bases, do the Teams Classroom to connect with the students that we are connecting with on there, email the parents, and send a Kinbo as a backup to say, hey, did you get the email, or do you need me to send this a different way? And then the last resort for me is the texting. I do have a handful of students that's the only way that they can send me their playing tests or just fun videos of things that they're working on at home. Some of them have been learning movie music or video game songs or songs they hear on the radio or on TV. And so doing the texting to the parents that maybe they don't have internet connection or a computer or a tablet, but they have that smartphone in hand. And then the last thing is kind of come up recently, realizing that not everybody has a phone, not everybody has internet, is sending out like kind of an old school newsletter. My dad was a preacher, and so we used to fold those little church newsletters and send them out every month or every week. And I thought, this is one way that I'm going to get to those kids who are getting those paper packets. Well, I'm not giving middle school band and orchestra assignments on paper necessarily, but I can send them a little shout out. Hey, we're thinking about you. We miss you. Here's a list of stuff you can be playing for fun, and then a list of stuff that you can play for grades, and doing a mailer, kind of a newsletter that way. So trying to throw that net like Jamie. Jamie had a lot of different ways to reach her high school kids, and we're just trying to do that same thing here.
Yeah, that's fabulous. Thank you, Lindsey. Would that be something that you would be willing to share after for other directors that might be looking for some inspiration on how to connect with those if we emailed it around to the attendee list?
Absolutely.
Yeah, that would be awesome. I'd love to compile some of these resources into an email and share it with the people who are participating today so that they can just look to what you're doing and find some inspiration. And of course, if they can use what's already been done successfully, it's a great way.
I think everything I'm doing, I've stolen from somebody else. So
bingo. That's exactly.
We don't have to reinvent the wheel here.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Thank you so much. And then Jamie, how about for you? Any different communication methods than what we've already discussed?
Well, we're using the school status, which is adopted by our school district, and that has all of the parent contacts in it. With that and Remind 101, I can send broadcast out to all the parents and all the students, which is a really good way to communicate. One of the things that was concerning to me was, how am I going to communicate with the incoming freshmen? Because I don't teach at the middle school, so I'm exclusively at the high school, so I don't have that interaction with the middle school. So I needed to find a way to make sure, these kids are going to be in band next year, and how can I get them keyed into what we're doing. So one of the best ways I've found to get in touch with them is through other students, like our current freshmen know most of those incoming freshmen. So the ones that I haven't been able to get in touch with, they've gotten in touch with them for me, given them, my contact information so they could get with me, and then we could set up that communication with them. So, and that's worked really well. Like, we have 43 incoming freshmen, and I've been able to get in touch with all of them, but about 9 students. So that's worked really well.
That's very cool, Jamie, and a great way to communicate through that. So good input. I'll also share this here. We've got a comment from an attendee, Chandler Weber, with a great idea. Google Voice provides an anonymous phone number for free for anyone who doesn't use Remind 101 or a similar program. So that's a great way, if you don't want to give out your personal cell phone number, that you can create kind of a ghost number and still receive text messages and phone calls. So Chandler, great input. Thank you so much. So we've got about 10 more minutes here before we approach the hour mark. And I want to talk a little bit about expectations. How are you balancing the expectations and incorporating musical development with everything else that's going on right now? We've talked about students might be acting as babysitters or being called to do these other responsibilities. And how are you striking the balance of expectation, musicality, and then keeping it in perspective of what's going on from the bigger picture? So Marcy, how about you? What are your thoughts on that?
My district has done a really good job of communicating that we want to meet the kids' physical needs, we want to meet their emotional needs, and then we'll try to at least maintain educationally if there's nothing else we can do. And I think just realizing that goes a long way. My number one goal is to keep my kids playing. If they'll just put the instrument up to their face, that's my number one goal. But probably my number 2 goal is to be a resource for the kids who want to do more. Because, there are those kids, teacher kids and kids who come from an educated family who are really going to make the most of this time and really going to use it. And so that's why I've been doing some one-on-one private lessons through Sign Up Genius and Google Hangout, and structuring some all region and scales and tone and instrument specific things to help the kids who want to make the most of this time really push and achieve, while not requiring that of everybody, and still trying to keep it light and fun and just something to keep them playing.
Yeah, I love that, Marcy. So you're really allowing the students to set the pace, and then you're trying to meet them where they are based on their particular environment. That's great,
Yes.
great input. Jamie, how about for you? How are you balancing expectations and maybe the student's reality?
One of the things that I really try to do is understand my students on an individual basis and what their individual needs are, in comparison to what the whole group needs are. So, you know, I do the assignments on Flipgrid, and I do the other assignments with that musical development in mind. I want to make sure that it's addressing their personal performance, their theory practice, and their practice habits. And I think that's one thing this deep practice form does, is it really targets the individual student. And again, you know, it gives them a guide weekly on what they need to do during their individual practice session and keeps it structured so they can address the things that they think they need improvement on. And within that practice form, they also have a video of them, or make a video of themselves so they can go back and then evaluate, you know, what they are doing. So I think it's, you know, again, I think it's very important that we keep, you know, that in mind when giving the assignments, make sure it is addressing their individual needs as well as, you know, the whole group needs. One of the things I've informed my students of in regards to the whole group needs is that their scale sets that they're doing are part of their audition for next year's high school band. So, you know, they can video that performance and make it as good as they want to, or just kind of, you know, just do it. It's kind of up to them, but it depends on what they want to do individually. And the same thing with the breezing through theory. They can submit an assignment when they make a 100 on it, or they can submit it when, you know, it's an 80. So it's about individual motivation and them taking ownership in what they are doing as far as their own performance.
Yeah, that's great. And Jamie, let me ask you a question too. I have heard you use the word deep practicing a couple of times. If somebody is looking for more resources or more information about what exactly that is and how to incorporate it into their program, where would you send them?
If anybody's, it's just a form that a practice form I've made up individually for my students. So if anybody wants it, I'll be more than happy to send them a copy of it, what we're using, and explain it. I have a PowerPoint that goes with it. But it basically is a set of instructions that they go by during their practice session, and they have to write down what they're doing. Like it starts off with, what new piece are you playing this week? Or how did you develop the ideas that you had last week? What are you doing in regards to sight reading? You know, when you listen to yourself perform, what did you hear? Find a professional musician that plays your instrument or some kind of professional performance and give feedback on it. So they don't just look at the questions, they have to really think about what their answers are and write those down. And I think that's really important for getting that to stick. So, you know, again, if anybody wants to, I'll be more than happy to share it with them.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jamie. What I love about that, though, is that you're bringing clear objectives into the practice session about what are we hoping to accomplish with, somebody talked about using our time effectively, even though I think Lindsey said, even though we have a lot of time right now, we still got to use it effectively and not waste it. And that's what I love about Jamie's method here, is that it brings clarity to what am I going to get out of this practice session today. So that's really good, Jamie. And so we'll share that with all of the attendees as well. And then I have a question here from Anthony. I think it might be to you, Jamie. What was the name of the music theory program that you're using that keeps track of their progress? Was that Breezing Through Theory?
breezingthroughtheory.com, and they have it right now where all the kids can sign up for free, and they said they would continue to do that while all of this is going on. Now after that time period is up, you would have to purchase the program, but I believe they're going to continue that through July. But it is a really, really good program, and like I said, you can accommodate for your curriculum. Like the very first part of it is based on the staff and note names. So you have the choice of giving them an assignment based on treble clef, bass clef, alto clef, or tenor clef. So you can target what you think your students need to know, and that's with each of the chapters. So it's a great program.
Awesome. Thank you, Jamie. Mark, how about for you? Anything that you might add working with high school students?
You know, just to kind of think about the practice sheet, one of the things we did this year was we developed a sheet that was individualized for each student. Because the practice is not as much about how much time you're putting in, but the quality of time that you're putting in. So it's a very detailed sheet that allows students to individualize their practice. And I think during this time, I know hearing from some of my students, I'm not there every day to monitor that now. So they're really having to use that as a means to accomplish the goals that they're wanting to accomplish and be ready for next year.
Yeah, yeah, awesome. Thanks, Mark. And Lindsey, anything you might add?
As far as expectations, I mean, I think that we just have to have our priorities straight. Some of these kids have bigger fish to fry than doing all the assignments that I'm putting out. But then there are some kids that need those assignments to feel structure and to feel good, you know, and have something to do during the day. So the number one thing is just self-care, making sure, you know, telling the kids to take advantage of any kind of a food, you know, delivery that our school districts are doing. And making sure they're taking care of themselves, not staying up till 4 a.m. every night playing Fortnite, getting some sleep. And I found out the first day that this started, and then also last night, as this has stretched on, that I have several students that are out of state. As soon as this happened, some of my students, their parents sent them to their grandparents to stay, and they didn't take their instrument with them for whatever reason. And last night I had a student reach out to me and say, oh, I don't have my clarinet. I've been in Mississippi for this whole duration babysitting my sister's toddlers. And, you know, I'm trying to keep up with what you're posting on Teams, but I don't have my horn to hang in there. And so you just have to be forgiving and say, okay, well, when you do get your instrument back, or when you do come back home, back to Kentucky, or you need to try to go through and work through some of these skills so that you're not behind next year. But once you get that instrument in your hands, just start playing it again. Just start from scratch, do your warm-up routines, and keep it going as soon as you can. So so some different kind of individual situations of kids that want to play, but maybe their family have put them in a situation where they don't have their instrument with them. I did have a parent that drove to deliver their son's tuba, but it was like three or 4 weeks in. So he just now got it, but he's starting to catch up a little bit. So just letting them know that they can work at their own pace seems to take a lot of the pressure off some of the kids who are really worried and panicked, and their parents are worried about their grades, because we are giving grades in Kentucky, at least in our school district. They didn't really want us to introduce any new content since March 13th or whenever this started, but they are allowing the teachers to give some pretty low key grades to keep the students motivated and give some feedback to the parents as well.
Awesome. Yeah, that's great input, and something we definitely have to keep in mind in all of this, Lindsey. So, well, we are right at 6 o'clock on the dot here. So first, to our panelists, thank you. You all were wonderful. I'm just completely inspired by the way you all are tackling and addressing these problems. We're all figuring this out together. All of us are. And I just love the vigor in which you all have approached these and trying to keep kids with instruments on their faces, but also balancing the reality of what we're doing and facing today. So we'll congregate all of these resources into one place, and we'll distribute it out as well with the professional development letters. So you can be looking for an email to all of our registrants for that. Also, next week, we're going to be talking about student recruiting. I know a lot of schools, 2 of our states on this call have already announced that we're not going to be back in session or back in the buildings for the remainder of this academic year. So let's talk about how we're going to recruit without a classroom, and that's going to be next week's conversation. You will need to re-register. This Zoom link will not allow you to access next week's conversation. So if you're wanting to be a part of that, and I hope you are, be sure that you sign up. And we'll be sending out an email and advertising that on our Facebook page here within the next couple of days. So again, to all of our panelists, bravo. To all of our educators, thank you for what you're doing. Everybody stay safe and have a wonderful, wonderful evening.